Drop a modern human into a forest with nothing. No phone, no map, no knife. Just skin, hands, and whatever they remember from school. Statistically, they will not make it very long. That fact should be strange to you, because 200,000 years ago, every single human on Earth lived exactly like that, no exceptions. And they didn't just survive. They thrived, spread across continents, crossed oceans on rafts, and outlasted ice ages that lasted longer than all of recorded history combined. So what happened? Why did a species that once mastered the wild lose that ability so completely that most of us couldn't start a fire without a lighter? The answer isn't that we got weaker. It's that we outsourced almost everything that used to be a skill, and evolution, quietly and efficiently, let those skills go. Start with the most basic one, fire. For early humans, fire wasn't a convenience. It was survival infrastructure. It kept predators away at night. It made food digestible, unlocking calories that raw food simply couldn't provide, which some researchers argue was a major factor in fueling the growth of the human brain. Making fire from scratch, using friction or flint, is not intuitive. It's a learned skill, refined over years, passed down from person to person around a shared flame. Now think about the last time you made fire without a lighter or matches. For most people listening to this, the honest answer is never, not once. The knowledge still exists, technically, on the internet, in survival manuals, but knowledge sitting in a book is not the same as a skill sitting in your hands. Your ancestors didn't read about fire. Their bodies knew it, the way you know how to type without looking at the keyboard. That gap between knowing about something and actually being able to do it is the whole story of why humans can't survive in the wild anymore. Consider how deliberately fire-making skill was once transmitted. In many hunter-gatherer societies studied by anthropologists, children learned firecraft over years, not hours, starting with tending an existing flame long before they were trusted to create one from nothing. It was treated less like trivia and more like an apprenticeship, the same way a modern surgeon spends years training before operating alone. That kind of slow, embodied learning simply doesn't happen anymore for most people because it doesn't need to. The fire is always one switch or one lighter away. Take navigation. Before GPS, before compasses even, humans navigated using the position of the sun, the pattern of stars, the direction moss grew on trees, the behavior of wind and water. Polynesian navigators crossed thousands of miles of open Pacific Ocean using nothing but memorized wave patterns, star paths, and the flight behavior of birds, a system so precise that modern sailors still study it today. That kind of environmental literacy took a lifetime to build, and it was normal. Every capable adult in that culture had it. Today, take away someone's phone signal in an unfamiliar forest, and the average result is panic within an hour. Not because the person is unintelligent, because the skill was never installed. Nobody's brain is a blank slate. It's shaped by what it's forced to practice, and modern life simply never forces most of us to practice reading a landscape. Search and rescue data backs this up in an unglamorous way. Case studies collected by wilderness survival researchers repeatedly show that lost hikers, even experienced ones, tend to travel in circles once panic sets in, because without external reference points, the human sense of direction degrades fast under stress. Traditional navigators trained their sense of direction constantly, over years, in low-stakes conditions, so it held up under pressure. Most modern humans only encounter the need for that skill during an actual emergency, which is exactly the worst possible moment to be learning it for the first time. Food is the same story, just slower and less visible. Foraging for edible plants required knowing, with certainty, which berries would nourish you and which would kill you, which mushrooms were safe on a given hillside in a given season, how to track and process an animal from the moment it was killed to the moment it became usable food. That knowledge base was massive, specific to each environment, and utterly essential. Get it wrong even once, and the consequences could be fatal. Now, most calories most people eat come from a small handful of domesticated crops and animals grown far away, processed, packaged, and delivered to a store shelf. The skill of finding food in the wild has been replaced by the skill of finding a parking spot near the entrance. Neither is better or worse morally, but only one of them keeps you alive if the systems around you disappear. It's worth noting how quickly this shift happened in evolutionary terms. Agriculture is roughly 10 to 12,000 years old, a blink compared to the hundreds of thousands of years humans spent foraging and hunting before it. Industrialized food systems are barely a couple hundred years old. Supermarkets, in the form most people recognize today, are less than a century old. Your body and brain were shaped almost entirely during the long stretch before any of that existed, which means the systems you now depend on completely are, from an evolutionary standpoint, almost brand new. Here's where the story gets biological, not just cultural. Skills like these aren't just cultural knowledge. Some researchers argue they shape brain development itself, particularly in how spatial memory and risk assessment circuits form during childhood. Children raised constantly exposed to unpredictable natural environments tend to develop different, often sharper, environmental threat assessment instincts than children raised in highly controlled, predictable indoor settings. It's not that modern children have worse brains. It's that their brains were trained on a different curriculum, one built around traffic lights and screens instead of animal tracks and weather patterns. This is sometimes called the mismatch, a term used across evolutionary biology to describe when a body or mind built for one environment ends up operating in a completely different one. Your fear response, for example, evolved to detect immediate physical threats, a rustle in the grass, a shape in the dark. But most modern threats aren't physical or immediate. They're financial, social, digital. Your ancient alarm system still fires, but it's often responding to the wrong kind of danger entirely, which is part of why chronic stress feels so different from the acute, short burst fear your ancestors were built to handle. The same mismatch applies to physical capability. Comparative studies of hunter-gatherer populations that still practice traditional lifestyles today show significantly higher bone density and grip strength than average industrialized populations, sometimes by a wide margin. Not because of different genetics, but because of different daily demand. A body that climbs, carries, digs, and walks long distances every single day builds differently than a body that sits for 8 hours and walks from a car to a desk. Evolution didn't decide modern humans should be weaker. Modern life simply stopped asking the body to prove otherwise. This isn't only about muscle. Cold and heat tolerance work the same way. Populations that spend significant time outdoors without climate control tend to show measurably better regulation of body temperature in extreme conditions than populations that live almost entirely in heated and air-conditioned spaces. The body's ability to adapt to temperature, called thermoregulatory adaptation, responds to repeated exposure over time. Spend your life at a controlled 70 degrees, and your body simply never builds the tolerance it would have built by necessity a few thousand years ago. It's not broken. It's just never been asked. And the honest twist in this story is that none of it is a loss in the way it might sound. It's a trade. Every skill your ancestors mastered, you gave up so you could gain something else. Complex language, abstract mathematics, medicine capable of curing diseases that used to be a death sentence, the ability to coordinate with millions of strangers you'll never meet, to build cities, to send a message across the planet in under a second. That's not weakness. That's a different kind of strength, built on outsourcing physical survival to systems so other humans, past and present, could focus on inventing everything else. But it does mean something important about how fragile that trade actually is. Every convenience you rely on today, electricity, refrigeration, supply chains, clean water systems, is doing work that used to be a personal skill, distributed across an entire species. The trade-off only holds as long as those systems keep running. Remove them, even briefly, and you find out how much of what felt like human capability was actually infrastructure wearing a human face. You've probably seen a small version of this already. A blackout that lasts more than a day. A grocery store shelf that empties out faster than expected during a storm warning. In those moments, something interesting happens. People don't suddenly remember ancestral survival skills. They call, text, or drive somewhere to find someone else who has what they need. The instinct to survive is still there. It just expresses itself through cooperation and logistics now, instead of through raw individual competence in the wild. That's the real answer to why humans can't survive in the wild anymore. It was never really that we became less capable as a species. It's that we became so good at building systems to survive for us that most individuals never had to develop the raw skills those systems replaced. The knowledge isn't gone from the species. It's just been relocated out of individual bodies and into networks, books, machines, and other people. There's a strange comfort in that, if you think about it the right way. You're not carrying less capability than your ancestors did. You're carrying a different distribution of it, spread across billions of people and millions of systems working in parallel, most of them invisible until something breaks. No single person today could rebuild fire, farming, medicine, and navigation from scratch alone. But collectively, humanity holds more raw survival knowledge than it ever has in its history. It's just no longer stored in anyone's skull. Your ancestors carried survival inside their hands and their memory. You carry it in your phone, your pantry, and the person 2 calls away who knows what to do. Different toolkit, same underlying goal, staying alive long enough to pass something forward. So the next time you can't start a fire without a lighter, or you genuinely struggle to identify a single edible plant within a mile of your house, remember what that actually means. It's not proof that you're weaker than the humans who came before you. It's proof of exactly how successful they were at building a world where you'd never have to be as tough as they were.